And the presidency has dismissed claims that President Muhammadu Buhari is planning an interim government and using the new cash policy to cause chaos ahead of the election. In a statement, presidential spokesman Garba Shehu said Buhari is committed to abiding by the principles of democracy and handing over to the winner of the election on May 29. He wrote, and I quote, "What should be made crystal clear to the doubters and the speculators and the untruth tellers is that in no way was the NAIRA SWAP engineered to keep the president in office beyond May 29, and nothing could be further from the truth. The president looks forward to handing over the reins of power to his elected successor. Now this will happen on May 29, 2023, as the Constitution requires it."
Well, Shehu accused those behind the allegations of trying to create panic in the country. We're now being joined by Senior Advocate of Nigeria, Professor Mike Ozekhome.
Thank you very much.
Well, good to have you.
Welcome, Nigerians.
Quite a lot happening.
So much to unpack.
If your smile could be what we see on the faces of Nigerians, and I'm quite sure
the smile could be cynical.
Oh my!
You could want to cry, and you decide to smile instead because of the pains and agony that are revolting in you.
So exactly, how do we paint this? Now, you just saw what's happening in Kaduna State, to the extent that the people, the everyday Nigerians, seem to understand the law. And they're saying that, look, this is the law. But again, it's a good thing that you're here, you're Senior Advocate of Nigeria. Let us understand where we stand as a people.
What I want to say is that the APC government has shown itself to be a Fuji house of commotion. It came in fighting, and during the time of President Muhammadu Buhari, and is leaving the stage fighting in a more bloody manner. Remember that in 2015, we had the unity group headed by Senator Gemadi and the like-minded senators group headed by Dino Melaye. The unity group preferred Ahmed Lawan as the Senate president, while the like-minded group of Dino Melaye preferred Senate president, Senator Bukola Saraki, who finally emerged through some political daredevil and maneuvering at a time they least expected it. So one would have expected that 8 years are enough for a political party that came together as disparate groups, splinter of ABGA, new PDP, some AMPP, and the AC. One would have expected that 8 years are enough to have congealed into a great political party. But what we are still saying now is that there is internal schism, internal implosion within the same party, in a situation where a state governor can frontally, with great bellicosity and belligerent, confront the president of the country, not just of the country, but of his own political party. If he were in an opposition political party, it wouldn't be so serious. Just a second. Fine. This is a sign, and this is a sign to Mr. President and all holders of office about the ephemerality of power. I wouldn't imagine that Governor El-Rufai of Kaduna State would have done this that he's doing now about 2 years ago to Mr. President.
Now that he has done that, let me just
he just ended it by saying, so are you saying he's done this? Sorry, Ngozi, that you think he's done this because the president is leaving office in a couple of weeks?
Oh, it's weaker and weaker by the day. Oh, certainly. Towards your departure, you get weaker and weaker. And that's the meaning. Because El-Rufai or any governor, even though they are state governors in Nigeria, being under the same political party would never have been able to challenge president frontally like that and say, you have said this, I disagree with you on a state broadcast, this is how I want my people to go. And the people apparently do not agree with him. They prefer to believe Buhari, and so they are still not accepting the old Naira notes.
So how would you situate El-Rufai's position with President Muhammadu Buhari's directive? El-Rufai seems to be saying that he's justified, he's defending what the Supreme Court of Nigeria has ruled on.
Yeah.
You know, that status quo antebellum should be maintained. And President Buhari is going the exact opposite way. Is El-Rufai, as a governor of a state, in any way constitutionally empowered to take that position?
Where he is governor of a state, we are operating not just a democracy, we are operating an executive presidential system of government, and particularly in a state where we have, in a situation where we have federalism, not a unitary system of government. It's like in America, for example, governors can take their own decisions, even against the decision of the president. Have you ever had in America, Mr. President inviting all the 50 governors as they come to Washington, D.C. for a meeting? They will ask, is he crazy? Is he okay? But it's in Nigeria, you will see the presidency invite all the governors and all of them will be rushing to Abuja. But in terms of the position, although they are playing politics, although El-Rufai and Buhari, President Buhari, are playing politics, but in terms of the legal and constitutional correctness, it is El-Rufai that is on the righteous path. Because when you have submitted a matter before a court of law, any court of law, not to talk of the Supreme Court, then the case becomes sub judice. And the doctrine of lis pendens means that no other person should take any action in that matter contrary to the happenings in the court. We all remember that last week the Supreme Court gave an interim injunction restraining the federal government through the CBN from doing away with the old notes, saying the old notes should still continue to be legal tender. So the old notes and the new notes were legal tender following each other, right? Simultaneously. Then the case again came up on the 15th. Of course, the Attorney General, when the country rose up, when the federal government first made it clear that they were not going to obey, the Attorney General had to be beaten into a corner, and he finally said the federal government will obey this court directive. The case now came up on the 15th, right, 2 days ago. Although the Supreme Court did not specifically pronounce that we hereby extend our interim injunction, it was taken and it was understood by any lawyer that the matter having been submitted to the Supreme Court of Nigeria, the highest court of Nigeria, under section 287, subsection 1 of the Constitution, every matter submitted to the Supreme Court and every order given by the Supreme Court binds all authorities, all persons, and all courts of subordinate jurisdiction to the Supreme Court.
All persons, the president inclusive?
Of course. Oh, the president is just a Nigerian. The only difference between Mr. President and you is that he has a constitutional immunity under section 308, which is vice president, like a governor, and his deputy governor. But even there, the Supreme Court has held that yes, when they empower, you cannot prosecute them for any criminal offense, but you can investigate them and wait for them when they leave office, then you can go after them. What am I saying?
Right.
The Supreme Court haven't waded into this matter. All parties must blow muted trumpet and allow the situation which have been going on, which is that the old notes and the new notes will continue to be legal tenders. The Supreme Court said so in Governor of Lagos State versus Ojukwu. He said so in Abacha versus Fawemi. You cannot pick and choose and say, I like the order, I like this aspect of the order of the court, I don't like this one. That's what Mr. President has done wrongfully by saying, okay, 200 Naira notes, old ones, CBN governor, roll out more. That one will continue to be legal tender. 500 naira notes, 1,000 naira notes, no more. That was a way of overruling the Supreme Court.
So how do you now resolve a situation that's likely to become a constitutional crisis? How do we come out of this quagmire without endangering Nigeria's democracy? Because some are already saying a situation where you have, like, this is a first for a lot of people. I mean, a governor of a ruling party, you know, running against the position of the, you know,
that's their politics. I'm not a politician, nor do I belong to any political party, and I'm not a card-carrying member of it. But I like to look at the legal and constitutional aspects of a case. Now, the governor and two other governors of Zamfara and Kogi have gone to court using their attorneys general. More states have since joined: Rivers State, Ondo State, Lagos State. They have all joined, even Edo State, right? They want the Supreme Court to decide certain things they have submitted. The Supreme Court has not yet decided, mind you. It merely said, maintain the status quo ante bellum. Status quo ante bellum has been defined by the Supreme Court in Habib Akakpo's case to mean the situation before the breakout of war, or before the breakout of hostility, or before the breakout of crisis. Meaning that the situation ante bellum is that old Naira and new Naira notes, which were supposed to have ended as legal tenders on the 10th of February, continue to be in use until the Supreme Court decides this matter. And the Supreme Court has adjourned the matter to the 22nd of this month. The way I put it elsewhere, it's like saying in native parlance, you drive away the fox before you blame the fowl for wandering too far into the bush.
Which means?
He has not decided. That means the Supreme Court has not pronounced on the legality or otherwise of the state governor's matter. Many issues, Ngozi, will arise. You know, I am not. Yeah.
No, let me jump in. Thank you for letting me comment here, because now I'm listening to you. You've given us not one, not two precedents that have been set leading up to this case. That should have made it a bit more easy for us. Now the president has set a precedent, and listen to you, we can easily qualify it as a bad precedent. So how do we get out of this? I go back to how Ngozi has said, because a lot of Nigerians watching you, they'll be waiting to hear the way out. And the way out now, since you say you're not a politician, and rightly so, we're trying to look at the legal way out of the lockdown.
The way out is by waiting for the Supreme Court to pronounce on the matter. The states that have gone to court have invoked the original jurisdiction of the Supreme Court in section 242, subsection 1 of the Constitution. The Supreme Court has two types of jurisdiction. One is appellate, in which case matters come all the way from magistrate court, high court, federal high court, court of appeal to the Supreme Court. The other one is original jurisdiction. Original jurisdiction is when there's a dispute or a quarrel having to do with a factual situation or legal situation or any claim between states or between a state and the federation, and between states and states. So if, for example, Kogi is quarreling with Kaduna, the Supreme Court has original jurisdiction. Right. If Kogi, Kaduna, and Zamfara are quarreling with federation, the Supreme Court will also have original. But some of the issues that will arise in this matter, which I've seen some of the lawyers thrown up, I am not in the team. And I have told you, I have advised elsewhere that the Supreme Court, I think, should invite all the 33 attorneys general of the federation to come into this matter, and go for that to invite seasoned senior lawyers, constitutional lawyers, those versed in legal practice, to come and be what you call amicus curiae, that is friends of the court, to write briefs so that the Supreme Court decision would be further enriched. It did so in the case of the onshore, offshore matter. Now, some of the issues that will be thrown up, which they have already thrown up in their various papers that were exchanged, are whether this is actually a matter fit for the original jurisdiction of the Supreme Court. In other words, is there a quarrel between a state and the federation? Is the federal government headed by President Buhari under Section 5 of the Constitution, who appoints ministers and gives them functions or duties, including the vice president? Does he equate to the federation, which is created under Sections 2, subsection 1 and 2 of the Constitution, made up of 36 states? The Constitution says the Nigerian Federation shall be an indissoluble entity made up of 36 states. Is this quarrel between Kaduna State and the Federation, or between Kaduna State and the federal government headed by President Buhari, who, in spite of the provisions of Section 1, subsection 3 of the CBN Act, which says the CBN shall be independent, actually controls the CBN? Would you say that this is a matter between a state and a federation? What of item 6 or look at items 5 and 6 of the exclusive legislative list?
What do they say?
Which shows, which show that legal tender, currency matter, meeting of coins and all that are matters within the exclusive legislative list.
So that
can
in other words,
challenge that?
Fantastic.
These
fantastic.
are issues that I see coming up.
Before we let you go, I mean, you took it right out of my mouth. Can a state governor give legal status to decide on the legality or otherwise of a currency?
It cannot, because the currency is a federal issue. Currency is a federal, is on the exclusive legislative list. Go and see item 5. Is there? Exclusive legislative list. That is, these are the issues that the Supreme Court will now, because the other party will have their own argument. But wait a minute. Why do we do everything wrong? Have you not seen that this NAIRA, ordinary currency exchange, is causing so much wahala, so much brouhaha, so much ruckus, that people, have you not seen some young men engaging army fighting? Have you not seen a young man stripping himself naked in a bank hall? Something that led me to shedding tears, hot tears. Yeah. He said, I have 500,000 naira in this bank. I need only 100,000. My wife is in the hospital. My children are sick. We need to eat. This is the first time in my life I am seeing, in my 65 years on earth, I'm seeing Nigerians buy money with money. You buy 10,000 naira with 4,000 naira. You getting me?
Yeah.
That means you have to now buy money with money, even before the expiration of the old naira notes. In my bag here, I have some old naira notes, mint, beautiful, but I can use them. Fine. Politically correct, it is. But the implementation is a problem. Right. Politically correct because all those politicians who have been stacking billions and billions of naira,
yeah, but some argue,
to corrupt
Prof, before we let you go,
no longer have the opportunity.
Critics are saying to the federal government, you should simply go after those, stashing away those billions and billions of naira instead of setting fire to the forest to catch a few rats.
Yeah, when you have the federal government that does not have the will to punish its own or to go after certain sacred cows in the society, what do you expect? Because how many people know that the British government, when King Charles III became the King of England to succeed his mother, Queen Elizabeth II, in September last year, the British changed their currency. Yeah. And the portrait that will not be on the currency will be that of King Charles III, no longer Queen Elizabeth II. And guess what? They said this implementation is going to start from the middle of 2024. So they gave nearly 2 years ahead. In Britain, how many people know that Queen's Counsel, which is the equivalent of Senior Advocate of Nigeria, is now called King's Counsel? And when you speak good English, she said, saying, oh, you speak good Queen's English. You can only now say you speak good King's English.
And that's a good place to leave it.
These were done
Prof.
seamlessly. There were no killings, no violent protests, no mayhem, no arson, no burning and killing of POS holders.
We'll have to live
It's
with
a
Professor
country
Mike
that is
Ozekhome.
directionless without a compass.
We'll have to live with
I pray to God
unfortunately.
that we get it right.
We pray so too. Senior Advocate of Nigeria, Professor Mike Ozekhome, joining us tonight on News Night. Do stay with us.
Thank you
There's
very
more
much.
to come.